The problems with the Secret Service may go much deeper than the recent scandal. The investigations could raise the question, is the service actually doing the job of protecting the president and the vice president?
Pat, already everyone from Congress to the Pentagon to Homeland Security is investigating the Secret Service. Heather Sells has the story.
Since the prostitution scandal erupted on April 12th, many have feared that national security was put at risk.
They could be employees of the local drug cartels. They could be spies.
The Secret Service is still translating interviews with 10 of the 12 women involved. But so far, says Congressman Peter King, none have any connections with terrorist groups, nor do they show up on any watch lists. And Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano now says there's no basis to charges that Secret Service agents hired prostitutes in El Salvador last year. But the scandal is still far from over as multiple investigations move forward.
We're going back now through all of the records, but we are going to get to the bottom of this.
House and Senate committees are seeking information. The Pentagon is investigating, and the Inspector General for Homeland Security is now looking into whether classified information was compromised in Colombia. The other question, whether the Secret Service has a problem with its culture, which has made risky behavior possible. Heather Sells, CBN News.
With us now is a leading expert on the Secret Service. Ron Kessler has written a book called In the President's Secret Service. And he has some amazing things to say. Ron, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
I understand that Biden, for example, had a pitch at a baseball game in Baltimore, and several thousand people were in attendance. The Secret Service screened none of them. Would you tell us about that?
Isn't that unbelievable? You know, that is so much bigger than the Columbia scandal, which I broke in the Washington Post. And it's one example of the corner-cutting and lax culture of management, not the agents. The agents are, by and large, very impressive. They'll take a bullet for the president. They're real patriots. What you saw in Colombia really was an anomaly, but I think it is a symptom of this lax culture. And it includes letting people into events without magnetometer screening, both for the president, the vice president, for candidates, often because the campaign staff or the White House staff will say, there are still people outside, the event's about to start, let them in, and the Secret Service lets them in. It's just like letting people into an airplane without putting them through metal detectors. And, you know, one of those people could be a terrorist with 5 grenades. Somehow this, people's eyes glaze over when they hear this, but that's the real problem, this lax culture of management.
Well, Ron, that example, Biden didn't have any protective garment on at all. He was wearing a T-shirt or something. He's out on the mound going to throw at the first pitch. All those fans in the stand, you mean any one of them could have carried a rifle and popped him at that time with no
Sure.
restraint? Is that?
Yeah, there were 40,000 fans, and you could have had 5 terrorists with weapons. The Secret Service also doesn't keep up to date with the latest firearms. The FBI and even Amtrak police use more powerful weapons, the MP4, and they will ignore the requirement to have regular physical fitness tests and regular firearms requalification testing, and then they'll cover that up by asking agents to fill out their own test scores. So there's an element of dishonesty going on. When you saw the Salahis and the third intruder, Carlos Allen, crash the party at the state dinner in the White House, that's another symptom, because that wasn't just an error. It was the Secret Service uniformed officers who made a conscious decision to let them in, to ignore the fact that they were not on the guest list. Why would they do that? Because they perceive that management will not back them, that the corner cutting goes on. One anecdote that illustrates that is when Mary Cheney, Dick Cheney's daughter, was under protection, she would try to get her agents to take her friends to restaurants. They refused. They're not taxi drivers. That's taxpayer dollars. That would interfere with security. But she threw a fit and got her detail leader removed over that incident. So the management, instead of backing the guy who's doing his job, following the rules, undercut him and sided with her. So that's the message that they sent to the people at the White House gates. Let them in, let them in.
Well, Ron, you know, when I had a Secret Service detachment, there was one female on that group who used to jog with me. She wore a neoprene suit in the middle of the dead of winter, and she could outrun any of us. And I understand now there's a woman on the detail who can't even open the door of the president's car. Tell us about that.
This is typical. This woman is so out of shape that she can't open the heavy door of the limousine. So what was the solution of management? Instead of removing her and making sure that she complied with physical fitness requirements, told drivers to just try to park in a way so that the door would open more easily for her. Another agent on the president's detail regularly fails handgun tests. Again, was not removed, still on the detail. And it's just one example. I mean, the whole agency is in a shambles. It needs more money. It needs to return to the higher standards that it once adhered to. And it really does risk the life of the president and the vice president, according to the agents that I talked to.
Well, you know, moving a president, I remember George Bush, there came to an event down in South Carolina, I think it was, and they had to go across a causeway with a bunch. They had boats out there with sniper rifles. They had a helicopter in the sky. It cost a fortune to move the president, and all that work to protect him. And you're saying that it's of naught? I mean, they just wasting the taxpayer money?
Well, that's right. You know, if you let someone in without magnetometer screening, and they do it all the time, one agent estimates that 1 in 5 events, major events, for the president and the vice president are situations where they let people in. That alone, of course, can lead to an assassination. It's so basic. You know, and President Obama has said he has confidence in the Secret Service under Mark Sullivan. It's just like JFK, when in Dallas, Secret Service agents wanted to ride on the rear running board of his limousine, and he refused. He thought it doesn't look good, the appearance is bad, and then if they had been there and the first shot was fired, which was not fatal, they would have jumped on him and saved his life. So I see that recklessness as being very similar to President Obama today.
Ron, our enemies are not stupid. They must be aware of these lapses in security. Do you think they're ready to exploit them?
Sure, absolutely. You know, people are so complacent, and you know, until an assassination happens, until a tragedy happens, nobody wants to do anything. It's the same that we see in the federal government with the deficit. It's really disgusting, and you know, the last thing we need is an assassination.
Tell me the name of your book again. Is it still in print? It's still out in the public?
Yeah, it's in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle. Is in the President's Secret Service, behind the scenes with agents in line of fire and the presidents they protect. It also goes into what the presidents are like, what the vice presidents are like. For example, Jimmy Carter was the most detested president by the Secret Service. He wouldn't even say hello to them in the morning. He didn't want them to say hello back. That was what a nasty guy he was.
Ron Kessler, thanks so much for being with us. I hope your book's done well and continuing the tremendous work you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Shocking, ladies and gentlemen, but true. Of course, it's a shame that, you know, when Ronald Reagan was shot by that Hinckley, there were people who heard about it in some cafe in the Midwest, and they applauded. You shouldn't be that way. We don't need our president, whatever party and whatever you think of him. We cannot have assassins running around trying to shoot our president. And these guys get paid enormous amounts of money, not personally, but I mean the service takes billions of dollars to protect the president. They have special limousines. They have huge aircraft. They have a fleet of cars that goes along with it. They have decoys. They have, as I said, snipers. If somebody comes someplace, you've got a sniper on the roof looking around. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Special telephones brought in for the president wherever he goes. I mean, just moving the president from one place to the other to go out on one of these campaign stops, $750,000, and probably it's $1 million now, but I mean it's very expensive. And to waste that money thinking that they'll let terrorists come through to shoot him is shocking. So let's tighten it up. Well, Lee Webb has the rest of our top stories from the CBN newsroom. Lee?
Pat, Tennessee's governor vetoed a measure that would exempt student religious groups from Vanderbilt University's so-called all-comers policy. It requires campus groups to allow any student to join and run for office regardless of their beliefs. Some organizations waged a battle to reverse the policy. Republican Governor Bill Haslam admits he disagrees with it, but he says it's inappropriate for government to mandate the policies of a private institution. Vanderbilt law professor Carol Swain, though, disagrees with the governor's reasoning.
Vanderbilt University gets about $24 million from the state, $500 million from the federal government. And so I'm hoping that the fact that they get so much federal money would be a way that legislators at the state and federal level would be able to step into the situation and at least be heard by university officials.
Vanderbilt University, though, says it is gratified that the governor rejected government intrusion into private institutions. Israel appears to be heading toward early elections this fall, and that would make an Israeli attack on Iran unlikely in the next few months. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and opposition parties have agreed to move up the election timetable. Netanyahu's term would have ended next year. Some politicians and military leaders have challenged the prime minister's focus on stopping Iran's nuclear weapons program. But polls indicate Netanyahu's party is in the strongest position to lead the next government. Pat?
Well, the question is, does this actually stop the Israeli initiative in relation to the Iranian nuclear threat, or would it be a clever ploy that the Iranians would now go to sleep because they say, well, the Israelis are having an election, so we don't have anything to fear till after November? I don't know. I mean, the Israelis are pretty smart. We'll see. But no, without question, Bibi Netanyahu is riding high in the polls. The Israeli public likes him. He's tough and he's strong, and they want a leader like that. And so he'll capitalize on that popularity. But could it be a feint to put the Iranians to sleep? Well, we'll find out if something happens during the summer. Lee?
A Christian leader in Nigeria is warning the government there that it must stop the attacks by a radical Muslim group. The president of the Christian Association of Nigeria says if the government will not put an end to the violence, Christians may take matters into their own hands. He says the church has encouraged restraint, but they can no longer guarantee such cooperation. The radical Islamist group Boko Haram has killed almost 500 people this year alone. The dead include Christians as well as Muslims. Nearly 15% of people around the world believe that the world will end in their lifetime. A new poll from Reuters finds that 1 in 7 think that way, and 10% believe that the Mayan calendar signifies the world will end this year. About 1 in every 10 people worldwide say they have fear or anxiety over the impending end of the world. And here at home, more people seem to be convinced they're living in the last days. 22% of Americans think the world will end in their lifetime. Pat, really, this is nothing new. I was reading about the first Great Awakening in this country during the time that Jonathan Edwards preached, and many religious leaders during that time believed that the end was about to come.
Well, it's a good thing to live in anticipation. The Lord said, keep your lights on. You be prepared for you never know what hour he'll come, whether in the early hours or late. You would always be prepared. If the wise man or the strong man had known that his house would be broken into, he'd have prepared and taken action. Well, that's all well and good, but to live under the shadow that the world is going to end tomorrow because of a bunch of Indians down in the jungles, the Yucatan, that's nuts. Now, sure, they had some rather sophisticated astronomy. It's amazing what they were able to do. But that calendar merely says that the planets will have, in our solar system, there'll be an alignment, and the center of the galaxy will line up with the planets in our solar system. will exert a strong force on this planet, period. It isn't the end of the world. But who knows? I mean, Indians are Indians, and I mean, they weren't exactly the most advanced civilization. They built some pyramids, and they had some interesting astronomy. But if you watch the History Channel or whatever, they've got aliens coming down and tipping them off about what's going to happen. I mean, it's nonsense, ladies and gentlemen. The Lord will show you. But he said, the angels don't know the hour. You don't know the hour. I don't know the hour. The Father himself has kept that into his, within his own counsel. There's one thing he said: when this gospel of the kingdom is preached in all the world for a witness, then the end's going to come. That's the key, not the Mayan calendar, not some alien invasion, but when the gospel is preached. That's what you want to do. So if you want to hasten the coming of Jesus, get the gospel out around the world.
The Reverend Billy Graham is urging North Carolinians to vote to ban gay marriage. North Carolina is the latest state to consider a constitutional amendment on the issue. The 93-year-old Graham says the Bible is clear that God's definition of marriage is between one man and one woman. He says the home and marriage are the foundation of society and must be protected. The vote on the amendment in the Tar Heel State takes place on May 8th. Rhode Island's Attorney General says that the memorial cross sitting on city property in the town of Woonsocket transcends religion and should not be removed. The Freedom from Religion Foundation is complaining about the cross. They say it violates the separation of church and state. The cross stands as a tribute to soldiers who died in both world wars. And Rhode Island Attorney General Peter Kilmartin says it should stay in place. He says the atheist group is diminishing the significance of the memorial cross. And he says it's, quote, time to fight zealotry. You can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com.